All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Total Media Live. And today is a very special podcast. Some people are having a phenomenal weekend with what's going on in the news. We'll talk about that here shortly. But just real quickly, would like to thank all of our listeners for continuing to let us grow in our podcast. We're approaching 200 listens across all platforms, and that is all thanks to you guys. Cannot thank you all enough. From like I said, from everywhere, from all across the world now. We're international, and that's something that is really awesome. We really try to reach everybody. And if you guys notice a little bit of a different look right now, you'll notice maybe it's a little bit lighter in here. And I can't wait for our guests to see some of the new things that we've added to our arsenal in terms of podcasting equipment and video equipment. But we are continuing to up our game. And if you guys watch this on YouTube, which we air live every Saturday at 4:30 Central Standard Time. But if you tune in live on YouTube, you can actually catch the podcast live on Saturdays at 4:30 Central Standard Time, as I said. So if you are watching this, thank you guys so much for watching live. It's always the best way to watch Total Media Live if you are a fan of the podcast. And without a doubt, we appreciate everybody who tunes in from all of our platforms, from Google Play. Let's see, we've got Stitcher, we've got TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcast. I mean, guys, we've really tried to tap every market that we could to bring our podcast to everybody. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And without further ado, my name is Timothy Williams, and I look forward to chatting with you for who knows, however long we feel like chatting. And thank you guys. If you guys want to check us out on SoundCloud, we're also on SoundCloud. But let's get into the podcast today, huh? So a lot of stuff has been going on this past week, and we've tried to continue chunking our podcasts onto YouTube. So just in case you don't have the full hour, maybe hour and a half to listen, you can always go to our YouTube channel and watch little clips of our podcast. And some of the stuff that we've talked about has actually basically been predictions of what's going to happen, things of that nature. We've talked about all sorts of impacts of obviously the pandemic that's going on right now. And we just try to break it down, give both perspectives, and really just try to analyze what's going on in the world right now. And whether that's sports, whether that's politics, whether that's pop culture, we kind of touch on everything. Our description for our podcast is always it's a little interesting, because we really want to bring you total media. We want to bring you everything from gaming to sports, which some people would consider gaming, to people's experiences in Nashville, because that's what we're based out of. I mean, there's just a lot of things that we like to talk about in this podcast. So one of the first things I want to talk about today is the big news in the sporting world. And I want to start with actually the NFL, which is having its draft right now. I'm actually kind of watching as we podcast live to see if there's anybody that was local that's taken. So far, the only people from Tennessee that we've seen in terms of the state that I can recall so far, I believe it's been T. Higgins. And T. Higgins attended Oak Ridge High School, which we actually lost to them last year in a very close game. They actually pulled out the triple option on us. That was actually really interesting. For those of you that watch American football, one of the things I coach high school football, and we play at the highest level in public schools. And so we play a lot of good teams. And one of the teams that we played last year, in the middle of the season, they broke out a new scheme called the triple option. Really caught us off guard for a little bit, and took us kind of all game to adjust, and we ended up losing the game. But anyways, the reason why I'm talking about Oak Ridge High School is because that's actually where T. Higgins, the player from Tennessee that got drafted, and he went to Clemson University, and he ended up getting drafted. And wow, this is awesome. It looks like Jawan Jennings, another local Murfreesboro Blackman High School athlete, just got selected. Blackman High School, I know that's probably a strange name for some people that are not familiar with our area, but like I said, they had an awesome athlete named Jawan Jennings. He dominated us when we played him in 2013, I want to say, in high school. and he actually played quarterback in high school. Now he plays wide receiver, and it looks like he is off the draft board. And let me go ahead and make sure that's the case. But that's actually awesome. When you guys look at the NFL draft, the reason, yeah, it looks like Jawan Jennings just got drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. And what's interesting is he actually ran what some people would say is not such a great 40 time, which is basically a straight line 40-yard dash where you try to run as fast as you can. You build acceleration, and then you literally just try to hold it as long as you can until you cross to the 40 yards. But Jawan Jennings ran a really slow 40 time compared to some of the other top receivers, and that's what caused his draft stock to drop all the way to the 7th round. But how awesome is it that he gets to begin his professional career in San Francisco, where they just went to the Super Bowl. And interestingly enough, he actually joins another local Middle Tennessee football player that we played at the same time period, Jalen Hurd, who was phenomenal in high school. Probably one of the top 5, if not top 3 best high school football players I've ever seen in my entire life. In person, obviously. But Jalen Hurd was unbelievable. And he went to Tennessee, University of Tennessee, for football for the first, I think, 2 years of his college career. And then I believe he ended up transferring to Baylor University. There's a lot of stuff behind that story. And I'm not going to get into too much detail. You can go ahead and Google that. But if you guys want us to talk more about Jalen Hurd, I mean, honestly, there's some of the backstory that we kind of got through the pipeline in terms of like, what kind of went down at Tennessee, and it just seemed like he kind of just got painted as the bad guy, and it doesn't seem like that's the case at all. He's had a fine pro career so far. Unfortunately, he got hurt really early in the season, and so that's kind of why he didn't do too much this past season. He's kind of hurt, injured. So it'll be interesting to see in 2020 as he gets healthy what Jalen Hurd will be able to do. But once again, the cool news is Jawan Jennings, actually from Blackman High School from Middle Tennessee, gets drafted to the same team as Jalen Hurd, who came out of Beach High School, which is actually in Hendersonville, Tennessee, which we actually have some listeners in Hendersonville who might actually be listening to this and saying, oh yeah, I remember Jalen Hurd. He was amazing. But yeah, he's actually tremendous, unbelievable. We did everything we could to stop Jalen Hurd in high school, and that guy still ran for 200 plus yards against us. I mean, he is just unbelievable. So when you guys look at the NFL draft, the reason why I wanted to talk about the NFL draft is it's just a really special time in these people's lives where basically you go from being kind of a broke college student in a lot of cases to all of a sudden you're signing a check for millions of dollars and potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, even if you're a lower round draft pick. But people's lives are changing in the midst of this pandemic, and they're changing in a positive way. And I think that that's something that we wanted to open the show up and talking about, because I think that's pretty cool. I could only imagine what it feels like to be drafted in a professional league, whether it's baseball, whether it's any sport, really, basketball, obviously, football, soccer. There's all sorts of sports that do these kind of drafts, and it's just really cool to see these men and even the women in the family, right, that are just so supportive, and they've been there, in some cases they're their mothers, right, and they've been there the whole time. And it's just really cool to see everybody celebrate and everybody happy, even though we're in the midst of this crazy situation. And the other thing that I thought about is, imagine, when you're the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, a lot of the time, you're pumped about it. And I mean, let's just be real honest here. If you're the number 1 pick in the draft, that's a celebration. I mean, that is one of the highlights of your entire life. And think about how many people get to go number 1 in the draft in any sport league. And it's just a special moment, even if you're picked in the first round. So, the draft started Thursday night, and immediately we got to see some of the awesome stories. But I just want to take a second. What in the world was going on with Trey Wingo on draft night? Like the first round. I don't know if any of you are watching, but my goodness. some of the stories, like I legitimately had to change the channel. And I don't have channels. I have I have channels because I have YouTube TV, but like I had to click out of the app. I just I couldn't handle it. The guy would get picked. It'd be like the fifth pick in the draft. Well, when this guy was a kid, people don't know this. He would always start the story like that. You may not know this. Like, of course, I don't know these terrible stories about these tragic events that happen in these people's lives. I don't know all of them. And to be real honest, in some cases, I don't want to hear them. Okay? I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying if we're celebrating one of the biggest nights in your life, one of the most amazing accomplishments that you can achieve, and we're going to spend a solid 2 minutes, 3 minutes talking about how, maybe one of your siblings passed away at a really young age and like how devastating it was. And I'm like, man, like that is really heavy. And I understand maybe a couple stories like that were just like overwhelmingly like, oh my gosh, how did this person make it? Because to be real honest, some of these kids are homeless when they're young and they find a way to like just stay the course and they end up becoming professional athletes and become millionaires. And that's amazing. That is truly an amazing story. And I love to hear that. But when there's 31, 32 draft picks and you've got the worst thing that they've ever gone through, and you want to tell us about every single one of them, that's a lot to handle, man. Let me give you an example of one of the things that they talked about. Okay. And I tweeted about this and I couldn't believe it. They gave a description of one of the draft picks donating bone marrow to one of his sisters, right? Doesn't sound too bad. And then he described how they did it. Let me quote. It was similar to a wine screw into your bone, like getting a corkscrew out of a wine bottle going into your bone. That's how they got the bone marrow. That description made me cringe so hard. Out loud, I said, oh my God. I couldn't believe it. Why are you telling me these things, Trey Wingo? Why? Why are you giving me these images? You know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to repeat it. It's so bad. And that's just one example out of like the 30 that he talked about. And like, I get it. Like some of these stories are really impactful. They literally change these people's lives. Like that's legitimate. You can go through the worst thing in your life and it shapes you into the person you are. That's what happens. I mean, shoot, personally, that's happened to me many times. And I'm not going to say that there's just one event that's shaped my life, but what I'm going to say is sometimes you go through a really tragic event and that's the main thing that really like changes you, right? And I'm not saying I don't want to hear about these stories. All I'm saying is when we hear about these stories, 30 of them is a lot. And I respect Trey Wingo. I respect what he does as a journalist, as a reporter, everything. I respect that 1,000%. But, geez, can we lay off just a little bit on like all of these tragic stories when these guys get drafted? It's supposed to be the happiest moment of their life. Unless, you have a kid, they've had a kid or something, I mean, think about that for a second. Like you just got selected in what is a top 2, top 3 moment in your entire life. And the first thing that people want to talk about is, hey, remember that time there was a car accident that killed one of your family members? No, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Give me a story about how they, changed somebody else's life. How before they even became millionaires, they were already good people. How about that? How about something about them being a student athlete? Hey, this person could have gone to medical school. How awesome is that? In fact, they still might after their pro career or during their pro. I don't know. But my goodness, Espen, Espen, what is going on? I love you, Espen. I'm watching you right now. I got you on the screen right over here. I could share the screen, but I'm not. Okay? But that's 2 weeks in a row we've talked about Espen. Last week we talked about how they wrote an article and the headline was NBA basketball players not being paid. And then you read the story and it was like, oh yeah, well, they're getting paid 75% of their salary. And then I guarantee you, with 100% of my mortgage, whatever you want, I guarantee you that Trey Wingo has told at least 7 sob stories since I've been on this podcast. All right. I don't know. Something about that just rubs me the wrong way in some cases. You know what I mean? Like I was on Twitter earlier and I saw this trend about how there's this channel that strictly is dedicated to showing you unfiltered interviews with like homeless people that have addictions, like people that have had tragic events and traumatic events happen, and they get them in front of a camera and they just talk. And like, okay. And so many people on Twitter were just like bashing them. They're like, they're taking advantage of the people that are being exploited already, and now he's making money off of them, or they're making money. I don't know. You know, I'm not saying that that's what it feels like. What I'm saying is like sometimes we don't need to know some of that stuff. You know, maybe it comes out later or something. I don't know. Maybe they tell people that are close to them. Maybe I'm weird for having stories that I don't like everybody, talking about on television. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm old fashioned, right? I don't know. But like I said, the NFL draft going on right now, finishing up, and they'll be getting to the last pick of the draft, which is called Mr. Irrelevant. And it's quite funny. They throw quite a bit of a party for Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft. And I wonder who it'll be this year. It'll be interesting to see. Anyways, so last week you might have heard us mention, actually for the past couple of weeks, you might have heard us mention a little bit about the UFC and what's going on right now. And obviously with Donald Trump going ahead and starting to let states go about their own schedule of kind of opening and reopening their economy, Florida has been one of the first states, as we've talked about, to really open up. And if you remember last week, we talked about it, how Florida had already opened beaches, and within 30 minutes to an hour, the beaches were packed with thousands of people, and that's just kind of the way it is. And obviously, one point of view we want to give you is, one thing that Florida is getting a head start on everybody is they are getting a head start on practicing, what life is going to be like after, this whole pandemic clears. And once again, Florida, the reason why we're talking about it is right now they are scheduled to have fights in Florida. Now, it's going to be interesting, and obviously this is a day-to-day basis, okay? But what it seems like is right now there is going to be UFC fights in Florida on May 9th. And if you're thinking about how many days that is from right now, let's see, it's April 25th. So we're a little over 2 weeks away from this. And UFC is planning on hosting a pretty interesting fight card. There's going to be 3 fight cards. And it looks like UFC is going to get back to business. Now, it is important to note, there will be no audience. We want to make that abundantly clear to everybody who is still forming their own opinions about this. But as of right now, they're going to hold these events without an audience. And it seems like they're going to be pay-per-view, at least the first one. And you're looking at events on May 9th, May 13th, and May 16th. So, going to be really interesting, first of all, to see the numbers on these UFC events. The NFL draft, as we were talking about earlier, the NFL draft had bigger numbers than it's had ever. I think these are the biggest NFL draft numbers in modern history. I believe that's what I read. And it really comes as no surprise. I mean, that's kind of obvious. Like, you just kind of do simple, thinking here, and you're like, well, hey, if nobody can really go to the draft because it's not happening in like a public place, then everybody's probably going to watch it on television, right? And so that's kind of an easy call there. And that appears to be what's going on with sporting events right now. So we're looking at the NBA draft as having, or excuse me, the NFL draft having almost, I want to say like a 30% increase in viewers. Now, I wonder what's going to happen with UFC. I think that's the most interesting part about all this, right? Like, is UFC going to see their numbers grow 30% as well? And here's the follow-up to that, right? Okay. So everybody sees right now that the NFL draft has a ton of viewers, right? I mean, just to be real honest, I didn't even really watch the second round. I wasn't really that much into it. Yeah, but a lot of people are. And because of that, I wonder if other sports leagues will say, hey, we got to figure something out immediately. Like, we got to have private events somewhere. It's got to happen. And like a state like Florida, like, I wonder what are the NBA teams like thinking like, oh, guys, let's all go to Florida. Like, what are they thinking right now? I mean, I don't know. It's all I know is the way business and corporations usually work is they care about their bottom line. I'm not going to say more than anything, but yeah. So with that in mind, it just makes you think, if there's so much money to be made and we're still in somewhat of a lockdown right now, how valuable would it be to be able to have a sporting event right now and just rake in that TV revenue? So it's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure how I feel about the idea of watching the NBA with no crowd. I think I love it. But UFC, like I said, is scheduled to have fights as soon as May 9th. And once again, this will be in Florida. So we'll see how this plays out. I guarantee you I will not pay for the pay-per-view, but I'll watch the fights if they're on ESPN. Yeah, you can probably guarantee that. Might as well give it a shot, right? Maybe I'll find a sport that I'm like, oh my, how was I never into this? So we'll give UFC a shot. Who knows? We might even live stream a little bit of it. I don't know. In terms of watching the background and live stream it while we watch it on our own screens. So we'll see. If you guys would like to see that, hey, give us a little bit of feedback. Drop us a comment on YouTube. Drop us a comment on SoundCloud. Let us know. But if you guys would be interested in watching some live stream UFC with us, May 9th, let us know. It's 2 weeks away. We'll talk about it next episode too. All right. So, one thing that we kind of talked about right there is, would you watch the NBA with no crowd? And I want to talk specifically about the NBA. And the reason why I want to talk about the NBA is because obviously it's in season, even though it's postponed right now. And it is a unique game in the sense, there's a lot of talking. Like in football, there's talking pre-snap. There's a little bit of talking during the play. But like basketball is just a little bit louder. You know what I mean? Like when you're playing basketball and you're talking, like whether it's you're like communicating, I got him, or whether you're communicating, shot, I don't know, but like you can hear everything on a football, or excuse me, on a basketball court. And so I just wonder, let's just hypothetically go into a world where the NBA is back without a crowd. You guys understand how much cursing we're gonna hear in the court? Like, you know how like they've got that The Last Dance, which by the way I watched, phenomenal, phenomenal. We'll talk about that in a second. But you know how much cursing would go on? They would have to rate it mature for you to watch an NBA basketball game, man. Like, no doubt. And I'm not saying that like NBA players are barbarians or jerks for the way that they talk. Dude, literally, if you listen to the NFL, you would hear crazy language too. But what I'm saying is like when there's no crowd and the arena's empty and like everything's echoing and all you can hear is like the squeaking of the sneakers, right? Squeak, 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 like of them like changing direction, right? And them planting and stuff. You're going to hear a lot of curse words, and you can hear them live as it is when even, there's thousands of people in the arena. You can watch old highlights of like Kevin Garnett blocking somebody and say, give me that shit, So like that's common. You're going to hear so much. And to be real honest, I'm here for it all day. Sign me up. I'll pay for that. I'll literally pay pay-per-view if you give me mature, rated, okay, unfiltered NBA games in empty arenas. I'm in. Sign me up. I want to hear what LeBron is telling somebody when he puts their shot on the backboard or when he yams on somebody. Oh my, the Akron Hammer. And then you just hear him just like, just completely disrespect from somebody. I'm here for that. Now, I'm not saying LeBron is a trash talker. I'm just saying I'm here for like the heat of the moment where like you get fired up because something awesome just happened. You know what I mean? Or like you're just in the zone and you're hitting every shot. You're like, hey man, y'all can't guard me. I want to hear that. I'm here for that, y'all. I'm here for that. So I don't know. Part of me is a little excited. Part of me is a little pumped up at the idea of the NBA potentially playing games in arenas that are empty. Now, once again, my only caveat, let me hear it unfiltered. Come on, give it to me. Give it to me, unfiltered. You know what I'm saying? Don't hold anything back. Let me hear what those guys are saying on the court. Let me hear the trash talk. All right? Let me hear the intensity. Because think about it. Yo, it's just them. Like, it's not like they're turning to the crowd and saying, yeah. They're not doing that. It's literally they're playing against each other. So, like, when they talk to the bench after they hit a big shot, you're going to hear that. Unless they whisper, which I'm pretty sure they're not going to do. Like, I am all the way here for that content in the NBA. So, NBA, if you guys are listening in any kind of capacity, please give us that content. We are here for it. It would be interesting to hear the NFL as well. There was a couple years ago when Cam Newton was still with the Panthers. He's in the red zone, and I want to say it's Clay Matthews. Yeah, he's like, "Hey, watch the will out of the backfield. The running back, watch the running back will out of the backfield." Just studying that film, knowing what your opponent's going to do. I love it. It's what we're really good at, But you're hearing this exchange on live television, right? And this linebacker in American football, right? This linebacker's like, hey, watch the will. I know what's coming. The play hasn't started yet. And Cam Newton just goes, oh, yeah, watch this. You've been watching film, huh? Watch this. That's what he said. And instead of running a will, they ran like a fake route off the will. And, the running back was wide open. They scored a touchdown. And so they used all the film study that they had been doing against them. Really brilliant. I mean, it's high-level football. It happens it's interesting. It happens in high school football. I'll give you a quick story about some of that. We played a team this past season. And let's talk a little football, I guess, right? You guys, maybe some of you are interested in some X's and O's, how coaches go about winning football games. Listen to this pretty interesting story. So obviously, I coach high school football, and one of the things in high school football now is like you get film on every opponent usually, and you get to watch every play that they do, and you can input data that tells you what they're likely to do. It talks about what they're likely. It can predict what they're likely to do. But there's all sorts of data in high school football, and there's not like full blown analytic teams yet in the majority of high schools, but there are some high schools that really utilize that analytic information, and it's really interesting because there are some schools that obviously and some coaches that are obviously just against it because they're super old school. Okay, but basically the way high school football works now is before we play you, we can see most of the games or all the games that you've played. We can label all the plays that you run, and so we can know pretty much what you've done before everything, right? And then when we play you in a game, like the goal is to try to run plays maybe that your opponent hasn't seen, so maybe they can't counter them or stop them, and maybe you're able to. Technically, they're out of Smyrna, Tennessee, but we played a team called Stewart's Creek High School, and it was really interesting. One of our former coaches was on that staff, and so they knew us in a very intimate way. Like we coached with this guy for I think a couple of years, so he knew the way we operated. He knew that we would study film. He knew we know tendencies, right? Like if you have a tendency that like every first down that's 1st and 15 or more, you're running the ball. We know that you're running the ball 1st and 15, or which is what most teams do. Or if we know that your tendency on 3rd and 4 or less is that you're going to throw it 90% of the time, well, then we're going to use that kind of information to make our play call. And so basically, this staff, okay, this coaching football staff in high school, what they decided to do is they ran a specific kind of play as the first play of every scrimmage they did. Genius. Okay? It was a screen. So literally every single game or scrimmage that they played in the summer and in the fall, right before the regular season started, they ran a screen. All right? And we knew that. Like obviously we were going to see the film too, And so us being super analytical and us being so tendency oriented, we told our kids that. And so our kids are on the lookout for a screen first play of the game, right off the bat. And if you haven't thought about what's going to happen here, same. We didn't think about this either. Literally, I don't think I heard one coach mention it on staff the entire time we talked about it. Oh, the only thing that we mentioned was, yeah, every first play is a screen. Like it became trivia in our meetings, right? We'd be like, oh yeah, you guys see it? Every play is a screen. Every first play is a screen. Because like that's just something that if you're watching film and you're studying your opponent, right? You realize. So anyways, Stewart's Creek comes out, first play of the game, first play of the season. We've done all this film study. We're all ready to go. We're pumped up, right? Screen. And they fake the screen. And guy goes, he acts like he's blocking, and he just goes right down the field. Wide open. All of us got tricked. I think they incompleted the pass. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I think they actually, like, they just didn't connect for whatever reason. I don't know, they might have completed it, and I don't think they scored on the first play, right? But it's just one of those things that kind of tells you, like, the different intricacies of even high school football. So it always amazes me whenever you've got these people on Twitter, these newspaper writers that just like know nothing about the game or know very little about the game, and then they try to bash these coaches and bash the players, and it just blows my mind. I feel, yeah, but that's just the way it is, though, right? Like everybody always is going to be a critic. Like that's just the way it is. There's people that critique us. How did you not know that it was going to be a fake screen? I mean, you studied the film. You should have known. And you're just like, hey, they just got us, man. Like that's just good coaching. You know what I mean? Like that's just knowing your opponent and taking advantage of what they know. And like that is the definition of good coaching. So I don't know, interesting things. And like I said, high school football is it's changed. It's no longer, you're driving to a Waffle House and exchanging video cassette film with somebody. You're sitting in your house and you're sending your film through the internet to other coaches now. And people are everybody on your team can watch the film. You can track how much they're watching. That's the creepiest thing about this program. I'll give you this thing. So like most teams use what's called Hudl, Hudl, right? And what's so interesting about this? What's so interesting about Hudl is it's almost like it's like the only thing that coaches can use because everybody uses it, right? Like once again, it's not a monopoly, but it's the most available thing and the best thing that high school coaches have, and they can use it in like basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, like everything. Like every sport uses Hudl pretty much. And basically, Hudl records your game and like it breaks the plays up play by play, and then you can dissect each play. And Hudl is awesome. Like Hudl has changed the way. Like Hudl has made football. Like I feel like it's made it better because we know tendencies so well. We can see what you do so well now, and the kids watch it. We'll go through in our program. We'll look at your film time and determine whether or not you're playing. Like I'll have kids that won't watch film the entire week before a game, right? And we can't do that. We can't accept that. That's not something that we can tolerate as a program. So we don't play you. If you show up on Friday night and you haven't watched any minutes of film, we just don't play you. You could be the best player that we have, and we can't play you because you don't know, like you didn't prep for the game. You didn't study for the test, right? You just tried to show up and just tried to like, yeah, let me take this. And the thing is, you can't do that. Like you can do that in some leagues, but you can't do that in where we play. And it's happening a lot more across like bigger schools, like populations of like 1,500, 1,200, or even 1,000. Some of these private schools have all the things that small colleges have. But Hudl has like changed the game in football. One of the craziest things that not most people know is there's actually something called Hudl Sideline. And Hudl Sideline, what it is it actually allows you to watch replays of the game in the middle of the game. So, like a lot of the time, what you'll see happen is you'll actually see us go ahead and go to the sideline right after, like say the possession ends or whatever, and offense is now switching over to defense. So we had the ball, now we don't. So when we come to the sideline, when we come off the field, instantly we can be showing our players, our athletes, what happened the last drive. So like it just happened, and we can immediately correct it. That is chess, right? and so what ends up happening in the high school level is the teams with more money, the schools that have more funding, are able to buy these things. And the schools that are not able to buy them don't. And sometimes that can make a difference in you winning the game. Because if you can't see what your opponent is doing and you can't like stop them because you can't see it, then that's going to cause you to lose a game. And, I don't know how many of you have ever dealt with like teenage athletes or like athletes in general, but like they're not super accurate in telling you what just happened. You know what I mean? Like we'll have so many kids come off the field, they're like, "Coach, I got double teamed," and literally like 4 guys will say they got double teamed, and you're just like, yo, all right, there's only 11 people out there. If 4 of you got double teamed, that means 8 people we're like right there. Where's why didn't we do something else? And so like that's just not really what happens. Kids and athletes just go through the heat of the competition, and sometimes you don't remember things right. So the way that you're able to fix it is you're able to come back to the sideline and you're able to pull up what just happened, legitimately what just happened on the film. and you're able to dissect, okay, this is what they're doing, and the reason why they're being successful right now is this. So in order for us to win the game or for us to be more productive, we're going to have to change this scheme by doing this. Maybe it's, bumping an extra guy over, maybe it's, motioning a guy, maybe it's our splits getting wider on the line of scrimmage, maybe it's we start long counting more. There's so many things that you see off of these Hudl sideline clips that immediately allow you to make instant adjustments. And that's the name of the game in football. That's what makes football the most interesting team sport in the entire world. Soccer's up there obviously, but like in terms of like football plays have to, like, if one person doesn't do their job, the whole play is just done. You know what I mean? So like if you can fix that one player and you can see it on the sideline, that can be the difference in you winning the game. That's why, like, it's so fun. Every time we watch football, Nick showed up to one of our games one year, one season, and he said, "Tim, the one thing that I remember hearing, get him." That's what they would say in the state. Get him. Come on, guys, get him. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't even like I guess it was just exactly what you would imagine it would be, right? But like just the idea that there's that much of a disconnect between like the actual instruction in football and like the people in the crowd is just hilarious. Yeah, get them. I love hearing that one, and but as a wide receiver coach, my favorite one is catch the ball. That is the best coaching point ever. As a wide receiver, your job is to catch the ball, right? So like that is, dude, I'll have coaches just scream that at the kids that I coach. And I'm just standing there like, dude, I'm sure that is like exactly what's going to help them catch the ball next time. Like by you screaming, catch the ball, that is what's going to make them catch the ball next time. Exactly. Like, no doubt. You mean wait a minute, it's not? Negative reinforcement doesn't work like that? Like my bad. I didn't realize that. You know what I mean? Like you just, like if you're going to coach, have something better to say. It could even be as simple as look the ball in, right? But catch the ball. What kind of coaching point is that? Of course, that's what he's trying to do. That's his purpose, right? Our guys block a lot, but the purpose of being a wide receiver is to, when the ball's thrown at you, you catch it. So I think he knows that. Maybe you can help him out and give him another coaching point. I don't know. It's kind of like the people in the crowd that's, Coach, run the ball. All right, you got a run play, man? Like specific one, not just like run the ball. Like you know what the plays are. I don't know, man. It's comical, but that's what like life is, though, right? It's a bunch of every now and then you got a bunch of people that are trying to be armchair quarterbacks. They're trying to backseat drive. They're trying to critique because they're better at critiquing than they are at actually doing. And that's a lot of coaches too, myself included sometimes. That's one thing that I've tried to get better at. It's not, you got a lot of the time in a football game, you've got a little bit of time, as in seconds, to tell the player what you need out of them. And so by saying phrases like catch the ball or, hit them or get them or, those kind of things don't make a difference in a game. It's the little things that you use to motivate them. Some people would say, well, that is motivating them. I'm yelling at them. Hey, all right, man, more power to you. But that also kind of shows what kind of leader you are, I believe, right? I don't know. I've seen so many coaches kind of always say, if my first instinct is to yell, it's because I don't know what else to do to communicate to you. Think about that for a second. That's deep. That's why coaching is like so heavy sometimes, right? Because it really like makes you think about what you do as a person, right? So I don't know. Like I said, pretty complex. It's pretty complex high school football in terms of being able to make adjustments on the fly. But a lot of the time, it's just you got to use your best players, and if your players are better, you're probably going to win. I mean, that's it. There's one coach we heard at a coaching clinic one time. He said, and he kept saying it. And the thing is, he's the particular school. I'm not going to say the name of the school because I don't want to flame the guy, right? But the particular school that I'm talking about, they beat us in the playoffs like all the time. They used to, right? We don't play them anymore in the playoffs, but they used to beat us. They always were the thing that was in our way. We couldn't get past them, right? And one day, I was talking to a coach who heard him, their head coach speaking at a clinic, and he was like, "Yeah, we don't really call plays. We just let our players play." I was like, "What? Gotta let your athletes be athletes. Let your players play." And I was just like, "Wait a minute. You're telling me we spent hours like dissecting film and labeling film and like figuring out what you do, and you're just like, yeah, just let the players play. We got like 3 calls, 3 defenses that we run, and kids just do it. That's it." we're over here on defense with 8 checks. We're making adjustments in the secondary, 2-3 times before the snap. Okay, not all the time, but sometimes, right? And you're over there with your 1 defense for the whole quarter. It's like, oh my gosh, man. Oh, when we lose to you, oh, jeez, that's tough. It's tough. But there's also really funny stories in high school coaching that I've come across. Like there's always teams that like don't respect you. That's always something that you run into. It's like an opponent that just has no respect for you. That always blows my mind, man. I don't think I'll ever. Let me rephrase that. My goal is to never be like that in anything that I do. Never underestimate your opponent, whether it's freaking card games, video games, sports, a test, an interview. I don't believe in underestimating stuff, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. Always respect what's in front of you. Respect what's in front of you because you never know, man. You never know what can happen that, for example, it just makes things more intense, a couple of years ago, we played a team in the playoffs. And all week, like everybody just talked about how they never watched film on us. I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that. Like a football team with paid coaches that are trying to win at the highest level in public schools decided, you know what, guys? I know they got a good record. I know they're like highly ranked, but you know what? We're just going to look forward to the opponent after them, like the one we would play when we beat them. That's who we're going to study. Why would we study the team that we're playing this week? They're not even that good. Like I couldn't process that as a competitor, man. And in a lot of sense, like, how dare you? Right? Like, even if it's David versus Goliath, if Goliath, the giant in the story, right, doesn't respect David, and then he gets a stone thrown at him, knocks him out. Hey, you had a comment. What do you think was going to happen if you don't do any effort to winning? If all of a sudden you just say, yeah, we're just going to show up and beat him. Yeah. No respect. Can't get no respect right here. I couldn't believe that, man. Yeah, we beat them by like 4 touchdowns. And it was great. We smashed them. And it was one of those things where like, I just can't ever, I'm a competitor, man. I don't believe in doing that. And so the fact that somebody did it to our kids, I was so happy for our kids to be able to overcome somebody disrespecting them like that and completely overlooking them. because we could have easily lost that game. Our kids could have been scared or not showed up, right? I mean, that happens sometimes. Football teams do get intimidated sometimes. And our kids were just tough. And they showed up and they were like, yeah, we're going to show you who we are. We're going to show you who we are. That's what I love about sports, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I love about competition. In some cases, you just got to, all right, let's stop talking. Let's do this. Let's figure out who's better. Let's decide who wins, right? And that's what makes it special. Let me prepare so that way I can give you my best effort. So that way when the result happens, I can know that I did everything I can to win, or I did everything I could, and I still lost. Like, to me, that's competition. To me, that's what it's about. And can you learn from your mistakes? And when you transfer that to like your personal life, I think magical things happen. I think that's why people play sports. Obviously, people play sports because they're competitive or because their parents make them. And we have that too. Or they want to wear a jersey so they look cool in high school or in middle school or in, wherever. But I think that the biggest trait of anybody who plays sports or games or card games or anything, I think it's just how competitive are you? Not how mad do you get when you lose. Piss on that, dude. I hate that. I hate it in myself. You know what I mean? I hate that. I hate that I get mad when I lose. You know what I mean? But it's just, there's a difference in like being mad that you lost and like raging that you lost. You know what I mean? Like, be upset. Let it motivate you. That's what every F on a test has ever done, right? Every D, every C, every B for some of you that are listening. You take something that's really hard that happens to you, and you find a way to say, I'm not going to let this happen again. Are you kidding me? The result will be different next time because of the preparation that I put into this and my hard work. I'll never understand why people don't let some of their kids like play sports and stuff. Like, let them have the choice, right? I understand if they have like a medical condition. But even like, the crazy part? The crazy part? Yeah, let me tell you a quick story real quick. Tell you a quick story on that day about parents, controlling their kids and stuff. And Nick and Ryan, in I think our second podcast ever, episode number 2, Nick and Ryan talked about the influence that a parent can have on your children in terms of like hobbies. I don't think I've ever shared this story. I don't think anybody outside my family knows this. So freshman year of high school, and this is how I started playing football, okay? So freshman year of high school, I finished the summer, and football season was going on. And I was like, dang, dude, they're in the middle of training. Dude, I got like, my mustache is like driving me wild. That's why I'm touching my face so much. I'm so sorry, y'all. Don't touch your face right now, okay? But everybody's playing football, and I'm like, dude, I'm faster than a lot of these kids. I'm more athletic than a lot of these kids. Let me play some football. But here's the kicker. My mom wouldn't let me. My mom had never let me play football before my entire life. Legit. I went, 13 years, 12 years? I had put on pads before, like, just to, like, dress up. And, like, I used to play, like, one-on-one football with, like, kids in my backyard. We put on, like, we would tackle each other. We played, tackling games where we run with the ball and stuff. But I never, like, played football until my freshman year of high school, right? And so my mom never let me play because she was so nervous about me getting hurt all the time, dude. here I am, one of the bigger kids at this age, right? I'm not even like, and obviously I was skinny, but it's not like I was lacking in. So it wasn't like I was the smallest kid out there. Nowhere close. In fact, I was like tall for middle school. I was tall for freshman, But like, my mom didn't want to let me play, and like she told me no. All right, here's where the story gets interesting. So I got a physical for basketball, and I was like, I'll use this. And I took the sign up sheet for football, and I forged my mom's signature. And like, this was like, dude, I know you don't want to let me play, but I want to play. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go compete. I want to see what it's like. And she didn't know. And I still remember the high school coach that got me to play, Coach Sean Middleton. It really sucks because I can't get that guy to talk to me anymore. And I feel like he would be such a great mentor in terms of like navigating career choices. And like, Coach Mid was awesome. Everybody loved Coach Middleton. I remember his house got hit by a tornado in like 2008, 2007. It was so sad, man. It was 2009. I don't know. But Coach Sean Middleton at Smyrna High School got me to play football. And I remember how he got me to play too. This guy was slick. Right? Like, some of you are probably thinking, I can't believe this kid forged his mom's signature. Well, like, you got to understand, there had to be something that made me do that. And here's what it was. I went into Coach Mid's class. One of my friends brought me, Harrison Gill. Harrison was hilarious. And his dad was the superintendent, which was a whole other story. But Harrison brings me to Coach Mid's classroom. It's like first week of school, me and Harrison are all of a sudden really good friends. We're like, yo, dude, you're cool. I'm cool. Let's be friends, and like, let's play football, because Harrison was already playing. And so Harrison takes me to Coach Mid's class, and Coach Mid said, he looks me up and down. He's all right, touch the ceiling. And I was just like, what? Really? That's it? And I was like, all right. And so I just jumped and I touched the ceiling. And he was like, yeah, come on out. And so, immediately, that's kind of what jump-started me wanting to play football. And then I forged my mom's signature. I took my physical. I went and got pads. Started playing. And I think without me doing that, I don't think I would ever be a football coach. I think without me doing that, I legitimately don't know what I would be doing right now. I think it's intense, right? I defied the most valuable person in my life to play a game. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's heavy. So the story goes on. We start playing games. We start actually we have a season. So we're playing freshman football games. And the funniest thing about all this is we fucking sucked. We were horrible. Like, we were so bad I got to play sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, kid who had never played football before gets to go in and play in games because this football team is so bad. Like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, dude. We went like 0-8. I don't know. We lost every game. It sucked. But like, it was cool getting to hit people. You know what I mean? Like, it was cool getting to like fly around and like run at somebody and tackle them. You know what I mean? Like, that, to me, that was fun. Some people are listening like, you hooligan. But like, it was fun. And like I said, man, I don't think I would be where I am No, I didn't play that year. And the thing is, like, I don't know, man. I look back at it, and the only negative thing I can say is I wish my mom would have wanted me to play. That's honestly the only thing that I wish was different. Or I wish my dad would have been like, wait, you're playing? Heck, like, that's the only thing because, like, for basketball, dude, my parents, my family was pumped to see me play. You know what I mean? Like, my family would come in from New Mexico and watch me play in a summer tournament. It was awesome. But, like, for football, it just wasn't the same. And I don't know, that's the only thing that I think I've ever really, like, thought was a really cool story, but, like, it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when LeBron talked about, it's an amazing story that LeBron was able to be, like, raised in a single parent household and go through all those struggles as a child and still be such a good person and, like, so successful, right? And he said, I wish there were more stories like mine. You know what I mean? He was like, yeah, dude, I wish that could be the story that we hear. But then he said, LeBron James was like, but what if there were no more stories like that? Because there weren't any single parents like that. Kids didn't have to grow up in that kind of environment. I don't know. Parents, support your kids, man. Shoot. It's the best thing I can say. And me and my mom still talk about that. I don't even know if my parents listen to the podcast, just to be real honest. In a way, like, I wish they did, because I feel like we're that personal with you, right? But, like, I don't know, man. That's just an incredible story to be able to tell people and share with people. But, like, I just wish it would have worked out differently. I wish it would have been like, you're playing? What? Sweet. What do you need? That's what I see so much where I coach, and that's what's, like, so cool. Like parents are so, like, into it. But sometimes, like, too much, right? Like, sometimes the parents reliving, their high school dreams to their kids. But I don't know. I enjoyed playing, and, like, I could only imagine how much more fun it would have been if, like, my family would have loved me playing too. And the kicker is my mom came to my games. This is the kicker about the whole story. You know what I mean? Like, my mom found out. She found out that I was playing football because, like, that's kind of hard to hide. Like, hey, why are you coming home way later all of a sudden? Football practice. What? My mom was so shocked when she found out that I was playing. It was one of the funniest things, like, from my point of view at the time. But obviously she was not very happy with me. Funny times. But, dude, it was, like, I don't know. Moral of the story, once again, let your kids be kids. Let your kids do the hobbies that they enjoy doing. If they enjoy playing Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, Fortnite, Rocket League, FIFA, Super Smash Brothers, whatever. Hey, don't get in their way. I'm not saying, like, be an enabler of, like, letting them get, like, bad habits or anything like that, but I can tell you some of my best memories are, like, when my mom encouraged me or my parents encouraged me to do stuff. When my mom scrounged up money so that way I could go to, like, my first national Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Heck yeah, dude. You kidding me? And my whole family was behind me doing that. You think I didn't want to win for them? I don't know. Intense stuff. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Total Media Live. Hopefully you've, I don't know, enjoyed it, gotten to take something away from us. But remember, don't forget, we are on YouTube. You can climb over to our channel, subscribe, so that way you're notified when we push out the clips of our podcast, or maybe you're interested in trading card games, or maybe you want to learn trading card games. We do a lot of reviews, a lot of helpful videos on our YouTube channel, and we appreciate everybody who likes our videos and subscribes to our YouTube channel, just like we appreciate you listening. So thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully you're safe, hopefully you're well, hopefully your family and your friends are doing the best they can. And big love to all of the medical professionals and everybody in the world right now that is struggling and going through something. Hope you guys find a way to push through. And remember, we appreciate you. We thank you. Shout out to all the media members listening. And if you're listening, you're a media member. Okay? You're a media member. Welcome to the club. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. And until next week at the same time, 4:30 Central Standard Time, enjoy your week, and we will be back with the 10th episode of Total Media Live.